Welcome to Get Serious. Brief topic today, something that probably seems pretty mundane for many of you, talking about notarizations. And so in our line of business, this is, again, probably something that nobody really thinks about too often. But, at least I can say, I'm embarrassed to say it took me years to figure out a more efficient pathway to figuring out a notary process within our business. And, this is probably even more important for, folks who are doing higher volume land deals. I know, some folks will be doing, 50, 100 plus deals a year, just routine paperwork that you're going to have to be going through. I mean, just in most areas of the country, especially if you work with title companies, remote online notaries are still a minority of cases. We always try to work with them or do that option when feasible. But in our experience, and we operate nationally, like that still tends to be fairly rare, like below 25% of the time. But, whenever you can, try asking, can we do a remote online notary, do a proof.com type setup? Some title companies will have that as an option. So whenever that's feasible, of course, like that's going to be a go-to when it comes to figuring out your notarization process. But, if that is not feasible, figuring out a reliable local mobile notary to work with is just such a huge time saver and can be a big money saver too, again, depending on the amount of deals that you are doing. So, again, when we first started this business and we were doing, much smaller deals on average, some of these that were, buy for $1,000, sell for $5,000, off the bat here, and you still have to get all that notarization done. First, when we were just self-closing, you can take care of that on your own, go to a UPS or a bank, whatever, and get the process done. Or again, it would be great whenever you could find you'd have to call a county clerk and figure out, hey, do you accept remote online notaries? So some of the times we could do that. But, assuming you're at the stage or the, level of deals that you're routinely working with title companies, generally there's going to be way more docs that you're going to have to fill out, maybe multiple different notarizations. If you're self-closing, pretty much there's only going to be the deed that's going to have to be notarized. Maybe you're going to have to get some witnesses depending on what state you're in. But with title companies, it can just vary, right? Some of these title companies might have 5 docs that need to be signed. They take, a few minutes to fill out. Others, it could be 30, 40 documents that are just a pain in the butt. We've closed so many deals over the years, and sometimes some of these title company docs still throw me for a loop. Like, wait, what are they asking me here? What do I need to fill out? And it can be easy to get tripped up. And so in some of those, still early days that we were using title companies, but not self-closing on them, again, I'm embarrassed to say how inefficient we were, but, I didn't even have a printer at home. So luckily there was a UPS near where I was living. And so I'd go over there and then I'd have to ask them to print everything out. And usually that would just take forever too. You have to email that over to them. Sometimes it takes a while for them to get it, and they gotta get that whole printing done, and then you got to go and actually sign all of those various docs. Of course, some of those docs are not needing notarizations. You got to fill out your wire info, and then you have to get set up with the actual notary at UPS. And some of them are easier to work with than others. Again, some areas of the country, you might actually have to get witnesses. And so I'd be trying to ask these other random customers, hey, do you mind signing? I've never run into, I think only once I ran into an issue where somebody was like, I'm not gonna, not gonna help witness. I was so taken aback. I'm like, wait a second, I'm used to always, friendly smile. I know it's a bit awkward to have to do this. What do you want me to do? But usually people are pretty helpful with that. And more often than not, especially these franchises or the banks, even if the title company says, the notary can serve as a witness, particularly in these areas that might require two witnesses. They'll be like, nope, franchise rules, we can't do that. And so then you got to find even more people. And especially like in UPS nowadays, they will require, having the witness provide their ID, and they have to do a separate checkout at the counter, like all of this red tape. And it's like, no one cares. Like, I get it, you guys. It's a cover your ass type situation. But, a number of our colleagues in the legal space, like nothing has ever been held up because of questions on who is a witness on a document. It's just some of these old fashioned rules, and now these companies are creating even more red tape, uh, for witnesses being involved there. But I don't get it. But those are just the rules that you have to go through. So it's just there's so many hoops, and I just feel bad for these people when I ask, because it's just like really annoying to have to deal with all of this. So like some of this could just like derail your entire day. I think that there were a couple times during busier hours of the day where it might take like 45 minutes to an hour just to get this notarization done, and then you gotta pick out your package and throw the make sure the address for the title company is correct and so forth. Like there's all these extra steps that you really just don't think about when it comes to closing your deals. And again, if you're just doing this routinely in a big volume throughput, like all of a sudden your days can get really broken up, and you can't actually get deep work done because you're stuck doing $5 an hour work effectively. So again, I mention all of this because we did this for way longer than we should have. And I can't tell you how much time I just wasted, trying to save a few shekels, as my partner would say, by trying to be efficient with the notarization process versus like, I don't know, the $100 fee that a title company would choose to do a mobile notary. So once we got to the next level within our business and just realized, wait, and usually I would just ask title companies, okay, can you just send a mobile notary instead, whatever that fee is going to be? Yeah, we're going to pay for it. We would start doing that. And again, the different notaries can be of varying quality, and some are going to be stricter than not. Plus, you have to be, and my wife always brings this up, we live in a decently nice neighborhood in Austin, and, a lot of notaries, like, it's a lower paying profession, right? Some might just do it part time, or they might be like a retiree and it's just more of something to do. Like, you don't know who these people are, right? Like, you can just be having kind of this train of strangers that are coming in and out of your house. Like, they know precisely where you live and so forth. And like, it's just, sometimes you feel like the most safe. And then for like alternative options, it's like, okay, is there a commercial establishment you can go to, like a random restaurant, even if it's a fast food place or something. But then you kind of feel like, should I even buy, I don't know, like a coffee here or something, just to show my patronage, even though I just want to get some notarizations done. So then you have to run into that consideration when, again, usually like if you can just get a notary to show up at your house at your convenience, like that's going to be the best option. And so we were working with this individual for a while, because a lot of notaries, I mean, just if any notaries are listening to this, they could probably bump their business always by just like trying to leave their card or their contact information to say, hey, I work in this area a lot. I'll come out to visit with you. Like you can pay me directly instead of through the title company. Here's my rate. And the folks who really took initiative, that's like, oh yeah, I mean, we routinely close deals. This could be worthwhile for us. And so we were working with this individual who was very solid from the, and that's the thing. Some of these notaries, like, they've been in the business for a long time. They know what to look out for on the various docs, make sure that everything is just aligned. They'll scan things in prior to sending out the documentation. They'll take the docs to FedEx or UPS, whatever. Like, that's the whole goal of a mobile notary. And that's just an extra level of the business. And so one of these folks had suggested, hey, reach out to me. Here's my rate, and it was generally cheaper than what the title company was going to be charging and their additional fee on top of identifying the notary. So we would always just try to loop them in. Okay, here's our local mobile notary. Here's their email. They'll print everything out. So we would just try to orient around that. Sometimes title companies, they'll need to like check if a notary is within their network or whatever. It's almost like health insurance, but usually it's not much of an issue. And so we did that for a while. And this first person we worked with, it was just kind of sketched out a bit. Just a little bit of weird personality, but like good professionally. And I was like, I'm fine dealing with this for now, but it felt like a bit of an odd situation to kind of continue on. And at one point they just flat out forgot to send out or mail out the FedEx at the date that we were thinking. This was like right before Christmas too, and it was like a really critical deal. And I was like, there's no way we're going to blow up this deal just because like the notary screwed up, and then I couldn't get a hold of them over text or anything. And I'm like, okay, I just don't have that much loyalty. Like notaries are kind of a dime a dozen for the most part, right? So it's like, okay, you're out. We're just going to try to find somebody else. And very fortunately, after that, we found a woman locally who was assigned to us and was actually cheaper. Plus, she would just very available as far as, hey, can we like set up a meeting within 24 hours? Again, title companies are always like so delayed in getting things set up. You usually have to move pretty fast to schedule things with notaries anyway. Just routinely available. She would pre-fill out a lot of the docs, just knew what she was doing, veteran of the service. Felt a little bit better about her personality and so forth, like a little less sketched out, if you're going to routinely invite somebody into your home. And also for states that required witnesses, she would have a couple neighbors that she would just get, pre-filled with the witnesses. So then, some of these other mobile notaries, sometimes they'll have to bring in witnesses and charge you extra to sign during that. And that can open up its own can of worms. So like, I honestly like prefer folks who operate in a bit more of a gray area, especially when it comes to notarizations. Like, yeah, just get the witness. Like, that's all just a bunch of bunk anyway. Get it signed. And so I don't need to invite other people over. It's just even faster for us to note down. And yeah, you're just much more reliable for getting things mailed out right after. And, her fee is only $50 per signing too. Like, that's just really, really good rate, especially compared to what title companies will typically charge, like $150 or more oftentimes for placing a mobile notary with you. So again, this is like taken us years to really figure out this process on how to find a more reliable mobile notary and just save more time, be more efficient within the business, because like, yeah, your time is just better spent on higher value activities. And yeah, I mean, it's always exciting, right? Like in order to get property sold, yeah, you have to notarize docs and get things sent out. But to spend any more time than it's necessary is no bueno. To put it lightly. And again, I'm just embarrassed how much time I wasted personally just using a low budget solution. Low budget money, high budget time, very high budget time to get all of this done. So I thought this was going to be a 5-minute podcast. I can't believe I've talked about 15 minutes regarding notaries here. But it actually goes to show, yeah, there's been more lessons and more things to share than I thought. And some of you are probably thinking, yeah, this is just like basic stuff. You figured this out ages ago, but if I can even help one person to avoid some of those issues that we ran into in the past in order to figure out our notary cadence, I will be very pleased with that result. Hopefully this is helpful. SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. Zero cost review of your land deals at Land Daily Diligence Facebook group, and LandPricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. With that, take care, everybody. Subscribe and share. Bye.